What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Crypto Mavericks podcast. I'm your host, Joe. We have a very exciting guest today, Vikram. Thank you for joining us from Superform Labs. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Joe. Excited to get into it.
Yeah, you had a very exciting journey, I would say, from what is it? I telemedicine all the way to running $100 million DeFi fund to where you are now. Tell us about your journey here.
Yeah, gosh, you must have went pretty far back to find the telemedicine stuff. Um, yeah, we started off, I guess, training in the intersection of engineering and finance. Um, first job out of college actually was in 2017, and had been running a crypto research and trading firm with a couple college friends. Very run of the mill kind of stuff. Was really fun back then, focusing mostly on behavioral patterns and like new listings and stuff like that. But bear market hit really hard, and I kind of went back to doing what I was trained to do initially, and worked on Wall Street for a couple years, where I was analyzing biotech companies, pharma companies, and actually a surprising amount of corollaries between the biotech space and crypto where it is now, in terms of just the revenue it makes, speculation, a lot of the growth opportunities. And got back into crypto around DeFi summer, and right before had been working with some of those college friends, and they were now at Block Tower, and got back into it because of all stuff that's happening on Uniswap. They're farming Compound, SNX, all that stuff, and it really felt like this was crypto was interesting, and there are a lot of things to build again. Felt the same way in 2017, looking at like a lot of those initial AMMs, the order book AMMs, and yeah, got back into it, and started working on high frequency trading strategies in DeFi at Block Tower, and then kind of had the inception idea for Superform come out of just how hard that experience was to actually manage money as an institutional investor in DeFi. And it also been investing in some new infrastructure that I thought was finally going to enable really fun consumer apps finally that, still 4 years later, we're kind of still looking for what those might be, but we had the inkling of what some of those breakout apps are, and that's finally pretty exciting.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world of DeFi that a lot of people don't understand. But I guess the first domino to fall just happened yesterday. Well, I wouldn't say yesterday, but it still has to go through the House. But the Genius Bill, the Genius Act, has finally passed. Can you tell us about that and the implications it has on our industry?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think we're going to look back at this and be like, okay, this was finally like the green light that the industry needed to start categorizing what a lot of these stablecoins should be viewed as. Pretty much what the Genius Act is like, okay, we're going to have some stablecoins that are viewed as payment stablecoins. You're going to have your Circles, your USDTs of the world, and then you're also going to have yield-bearing stablecoins, which can do more things. We already have, some of those stablecoins out there, like, you have Athena, you have Resolve, you have Level, lots of those stablecoins um, that are then kicking back more value to users than just being able to be used for payments. And then there's also interesting things in there where, if I have less than $50 billion in my backing, then it'll be a little bit easier for me to actually move fast. So it really perfectly sets up like this entrepreneurial spirit and the playground really for these new stable coins to actually find users and create this niche for themselves. I think an interesting part of what was in there is also that these stablecoins can be backed by like short-term treasuries, anything that's relatively liquid. And I think this is going to like masquerade almost as these yield-bearing stablecoins to actually end up bringing a bunch of traditional assets on chain. Um, and maybe this is part of some bigger master plan here, but I think that it's going to result in there being a lot more American assets being brought on chain because of just how easy it is now to create these new stable coins. And these people creating the new stable coins are not just going to be technology companies, they're going to be fintech companies, they could be banks, they could be anyone really that would benefit from a lower cost of capital in doing business. They could be merchants, whoever it might be. So yeah, really exciting times, and glad it all starts over the summer with the Genius Act.
Yeah, we go down a whole rabbit hole there. But before we do that, because we can dive and talk about this for at least for me, I love talking about stablecoins and financial markets for an hour. Talk to us about how Superform comes in play with all this. I know you guys have been working on this since 2022, and even before with Block Tower. And you guys been kind of laying the railroad tracks here. So how does that kind of correlate with, everything that you just mentioned?
Yeah. So what Superform has been building is just an on-chain platform for you to manage your wealth. We started off in 2022. We were building really more of like a marketplace, right? So anyone would be able to come to Superform and they could permissionlessly list opportunities, just like how you put a new NFT collection on OpenSea. Um, and through that iteration of Superform, we had like over 1,000 earning opportunities, 60 protocols that now distribute their products directly on Superform. Um, so we've always been focused on the yield bearing side of whatever it is, stablecoins, assets, whatever, and we've been trying to create this narrative for crypto assets that the reason why crypto assets win is because they can do more things on chain, and there's no reason for you to ever hold a dollar anymore if you can hold a dollar on chain. Still, you can still spend it, you can do whatever you want with it, you can trade it, but at the same time, you're earning 10% APY on it. Um, and Superform were on the yield bearing side, particularly focused on doing distribution for protocols, but also this whole cross chain access thing, which has been something that it's just hard for most users to manage. At Block Tower, we were managing our funds across 15 different chains, dealing with like the operational requirements of tracking the performance of these things. You have your back office, everyone involved, and we're trying to just create one platform for people to find the best opportunities to earn on their crypto assets. And I'm glad that like stablecoins are kind of the hype narrative right now. There's like so much going on there, but at the end of it, we're creating a platform that can do that for all assets. And um, I think next couple years are going to be creating more value for Bitcoin, for ETH, and all of the stuff that we're seeing for stablecoins will flow into crypto native assets too.
Yeah, I found it very appealing and simple on your site, simple. 8 to 9% on your stables, yield generating. And it doesn't need to get more difficult than that, right? For the average person coming in. But a lot of people will question, where the yields come from. They don't understand, like you mentioned, a marketplace for kind of loaning and lending and borrowing and whatnot. And I guess for the average person, they're not as concerned. Are you more catered towards institutions, or you're looking for the normal consumers to utilize Superform in the future?
Yeah, definitely retail focused.
Okay.
I think the really at the end of it, if it's a good retail product, I think institutions also find value in being able to use them. I mean, you see that right now with Robinhood, right?
Yeah.
You create a good experience, and eventually everyone will come. But definitely, I think some of the newer products that we launched in our V2 are going to find uh, institutions really tokenizing their strategies and then making that available to retail. So you're going to have a little bit of both the B2B and B2C and that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to get confusing, I believe, especially, you guys have your own stablecoin, right? Superform, Super USDC. Is that correct on your Ethereum? And can you talk to us about that? Like you mentioned, not only states might have it. There's private companies, obviously. Why issue your own stablecoin, right? Why isn't there one? We all don't want there to be a government-led stablecoin. I know that that's a fact. But what's the use cases for even an individual, like you mentioned, an enterprise, an entrepreneur, like starting a small business? Why would potentially, maybe not potentially, maybe I'm asking a wrong question here, that they want to issue a stablecoin?
Yeah. Um, so there's all kinds of different types of stable coins, and the Genius Act is, going to create the definitions of what each one of those is. To be clear, like Super USDC, we actually do not call it a stable coin.
Huh.
It's a stable coin yield product. And again, these are definitions, right? Like Super USDC, what's happening is people deposit USDC, and then that is then allocated into blue chip lending protocols that are dictated by governance, and um, then that is then optimized over time between those specific opportunities. Now, as these opportunities scale, we're definitely going to have them allocate to more things than just DeFi protocols. You could have, an existing treasury that's tokenized on chain, and then this stablecoin could be backed by the on-chain asset, or it could be entirely proof of reserves that are made off
Mhm.
chain. But to get to like the original question, it's that I think a lot of people are going to continue to do this. And actually, could you repeat the initial ask?
Yeah, I think I asked the wrong question, but like, why would Facebook come out with their own stablecoin, right? I actually worked with their team once on the Libra project for their stablecoin versus like, Jamie Dimon and his stable. We understand why banks want to do, but why would Meta want to do their own stablecoin?
Yeah, it's the tech companies are interested in it mostly for like building a network, right? And why would they be paying, 1 to 2% on any fee, or and just be helping another company build up their user base when that is all stuff that they could internalize? You saw recently with Bridge, and Bridge has been working with Circle for the longest time, and they launched their own stablecoin like USDB, and I think that was pretty surprising for everyone because people realized that you could actually that companies that are providing the stablecoin infrastructure would end up actually launching their own stablecoin whenever their network got big enough and they didn't have to actually use the initial bootstrap anymore. Um, I think it's probably what we end up seeing here is that companies outgrow the distribution of whatever stablecoin they want to be that they built their MVP off of. And then if I'm Facebook, I'm going to want to have the stablecoin because I can integrate it more natively in my apps. I'm actually going to be able to benefit and take fees, and the same reason how I want to have my own networking platform, my own messenger, all that stuff is that this is communication. It's just communication through money, and all these tech companies have really their own infrastructure to do all this already.
Wow, it's going to be a very interesting world pretty soon, right? With all of this floating around. Let's get back to the macro a little bit. Percent said that $2 trillion would flow through stable coins. Some believe that it's going to help buy down the US debt or maybe refinance the debt better. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, uh, there's a lot of moving pieces in what exactly the uh, intention might be for a lot of like what's going on in macroeconomy. I think where stablecoins play into this is that the first government to uh, adopt digital money is the one which ends up being represented more on chain and all of their
Mhm.
assets on chain. And luckily, I guess for America, there wasn't really too much that they had to do other than, just show that they weren't hostile to it anymore because the vast majority of DeFi was already built on USD backed stablecoins. Um, but I think at some point, when the competitive pressures are enough on people globally to reduce, and create more value for their own native government assets. Everyone's going to want to come on chain and issue them, and that's the only way that they're going to be able to benefit from all this capital that is going to be moving on chain and the composability that we now appreciate in DeFi. But on the refinancing and everything, like I think there were a lot of theories on that a couple months ago, but uh, at this point, all that's been thrown out the window with with all the developments, and hard to say exactly what the Treasury is thinking on interest rates
Right.
and everything else.
Gotcha. Yeah, there are a lot theories. Bitcoin Reserve was the hottest topic in the Q1. Now no one even talks about it, right? So we just want to see some
Yeah,
light at the end of the tunnel, right? We don't want more war and bringing down our bags. Um, so the stable coins has brought down, like Visa and MasterCard moved down 5% since the Genius Act passed because, they see it as a threat. Circle IPOs 5x. Now we're seeing Gemini IPO. We're seeing Justin Sun trying to IPO. He's working with World Liberty Financial. They're issuing their own stable coin. And it seems like that's the new play, right? Crypto's coming into TradFi. They're launching into the public markets. Is that's what's happening? And that's kind of like the playbook everyone's looking to do to raise more money. I don't know. What's your take on that?
yeah, yeah. It's funny. Everyone last year was asking when token, and now everyone's asking when IPO. Absolutely going to have more crypto companies that are generating just off-chain revenue through businesses like this. Actually, just go the equity route. Plenty of them, honestly, that have raised right now. Maybe tokens were a part of their plan. They'll probably just go to public markets instead. Um, at the end of it, the most successful tokens that we've seen have all kind of operated like equity. Sure, you have a lot of DeFi protocols that, because of regulatory concerns, could actually not act like equity, and they had to be just, valueless governance tokens was the meme. Um, but now that all this stuff has been cleared up, I think tokens start acting a lot more like equity anyway. They can, issue dividends to users. They're used just like stocks to vote on important decisions. You stake them, you can have like a preferred class of tokens, preferred class of equity. Except tokens are better than equity because they are transferable. Anyone can buy them. There's no fees, 24/7 trading, all the stuff that we love about crypto. But at the same time, like the circle price action has shown that like there's just an insane amount of capital that's currently just stuck up in TradFi that does want to be buying these assets and has never actually come on chain because if they could have come on chain and they had to have, then they'd be buying a lot more ETH and Uni and all these other DeFi names. Um, but if you're building a business that is understandable the by TradFi, I think more and more of these stablecoin companies are absolutely gonna raise equity. In the case of like a DeFi protocol where they're like very clear economic flywheels for having the token, you're gonna have staking, you want your community to be involved, you have more decisions to make on a day-to-day basis. I think you're gonna see more and more tokens, but those tokens can act like equity. Um,
Mm.
better versions of the equity. So.
Awesome. What what do you think the average person needs to know about DeFi? Do they not need to know about it at all? Because it could get very deep really quickly, right? Is it simply like we mentioned earlier, just yields, and they don't have to go into the underbelly of stuff, or is there like, do they need to go inch deeper to really take advantage?
It's a balance. Existing people that would be farming on chain would tell you that they'd like to know as much as possible. I think the new wave of entrants just needs to know that this is safe and it's being managed by someone that knows more about this than they do. Um, in a way, like a lot of the things that have made crypto so great to the initial set of entrants has been that okay, it's decentralized. I control all my stuff. My keys, my money. I make all the decisions. That those features are actually not something that most new users would really want. Like they actually feel more secure if their money is with someone else in a bank account
Right.
somewhere. Um, so it's creating like that environment for them to safely hold their money on chain through new technology like smart accounts, all this stuff. Where they don't have to like memorize a 12 character, 12 word passphrase, all this stuff. And then on the DeFi yield itself, I think most of that should be abstracted away. But they probably should know that, hey, my funds are going to be used just for like lending, borrowing. It's not going to be used to like allocate to some levered max alpha strategy that is being employed on Hyperliquid by some untrusted on KYC party. Um, but that can all be solved through um, effectively this middle layer of this emerging set in protocols, like the curator layer, the strategist layer, where you have people like Block Tower, like a lot of these crypto funds that effectively act as these fund managers, and those users pass to those fund managers, but all those funds are managed on chain, and then they are then allowed and whitelisted to do certain actions. That is, within the risk mandate of whatever the user had intended.
Yeah, a lot of people feel safer with their assets with centralized authority. Actually, is there oversight? Like early talks of that. We talk about FDIC with the regular TradFi world. Is there anything like that in the world of DeFi coming on?
If we could ever call something in DeFi FDIC insured, that would be huge. Um, I think we're absolutely going to have more protocols implement insurance generally as downside protection, like where I'm a bank pretty much, right? And
Yeah.
what a bank does is they're always lending out customer deposits, but they have a certain amount of liquidity on hand, and the bank eventually has a balance sheet big enough that it would be able to backstop any overnight liquidity that they need or any instance where they need that. Some protocols are already at that stage, right? Like Maker, probably the biggest one where they have enough liquidity that they can actively be allocating this and act as a full bank. But I think every protocol is going to want to have one level of like an insured yield class and then one which is more risky. Actually, Aave implemented something similar to their umbrella program. I think a couple weeks ago now you can have a secured class of yield, which is backed by the unsecured class, but the yields are far different. I think the unsecured class is like 5% higher than the secured. So um, yeah, I think that's like, but that will be the model that DeFi protocols adopt to create this structure, and most retail would be onboarded into the secured class.
Yeah, it seems like the government at least has visibility of this. Like Atkins is trying to promote DeFi, allowing you to, an individual like myself who has ETFs and utilize it for DeFi. That's interesting. I never even heard those two terms together, an ETF and DeFi, but it seems like it's coming down the pipe. I wonder who's going to head that up because everyone right now is leading the charge. Even Jamie Dimon, who is a Bitcoin bear for the last 2 decades, has changed his tune a bit. So it seems like it's going to come fast and heavy, and all these products will be available for a lot of people to utilize. What happens when all that liquidity comes, when all these trillions of dollars comes on chain? Where is it going to flow to? Is it going to go into my NFT graveyard in the past back here, or is it going to go into meme coins? Is it finally going to go into alts? What's going to happen?
Depends on the flavor of the month. It depends on the kinds of capital. If it's institutional capital is coming on chain. I think the theme will be like revenue generating stuff that feels like what we talked about earlier. It feels like an equity, but they're tokens, right? I think that's first, especially just the meta that we're in right now of like the financialization really of blockchains. I think that's the first to fall. Um, One of my favorite things the last cycle was, like NFT lending. I think that at some point that's going to make a comeback, and you're going to be able
Yeah.
to lend your NFTs out for some sweet APY. And then, further down the risk curve, eventually, uh, animal spirits return to crypto, and we see meme coins pick up again. And yeah, whenever there's excess, right? That's when where meme coins thrive. And meme coins are also culture, though. And right now, that crypto is still kind of finding its footing, I think, after a rough couple years of mass adoption, or what we were led to believe was mass adoption. And whenever that we kind of find that new middle ground again, I think meme coins are going to come back even stronger than before. So everything goes up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see the I didn't see the what is it all the negativities last few years. Maybe because I'm in the industry, right? And we have a president that launched a meme coin, and he's not stopping with the crypto narrative. Him and his sons were Liberty Financial. They just announced a phone. There's probably going to be a crypto wallet on there. They sent a cease and desist for the Magic Eden wallet. There, on this whole fiasco. People don't know. There's just a whole crypto like push by the Trump family. I mean, no one knows what they're doing. I don't even think they know what they're doing. They're like, because the sons are suing the dad's company, and they're kind of now they have a position in the Trump
Yeah,
meme coin. I'm like, it's like you guys are the same. I don't understand what's happening. It's a big hot mess, but they seem to be all making money on crypto.
I think that's the one thing that, yeah, that stayed constant through all their actions here. And I mean, just the good old Trump franchise. I don't think he knows what's going on. It's just people around him that use his name. Um, but yeah, I think the Trump meme coin and uh, Melania was Trump was the beginning of potentially something really great, and then Melania just confirmed that it was the start of something very bad.
Oh my gosh. I didn't sleep those 2 days. I was actually in like Tahoe skiing and I couldn't enjoy my family trip because I was just up. I bought the Trump meme coin, and then I was like,
Nice.
"This is great." Then Melania came, and like, how can you go from such a high to such a low all within like 24 hours? It was
Yeah.
amazing. Robin Hood picked it up, and then it went through the moon, and then Melania, like, what is going on here? But yeah, very interesting, family dynamics. I don't hate it. Like, there's a tension. He famously launched NFTs into Ethereum, Solana, and Bitcoin. So they kind of seem to know what they're doing. Anyways, I just like to talk about some of the alt stuff because that's the world I live in. Which begs the next question. You have a My Lady. Your Ethereum right now is the price action is not doing so well, but Base is taking off, right? Coinbase and Base is crushing it. There's a lot of stuff's happening there. Can you talk to us about that entire ecosystem building on there?
Yeah, I've been a ETH maxi since I mean ETH got me into crypto. I wouldn't say I'm an ETH maxi anymore, but I've always cared about it. I think the vision that ETH put out in the first place was the only thing in crypto that probably has been constant in among all the other stuff that's come out over the last 6 years, 8 years, right? Is people do eventually need to care about having things be decentralized, but having things um, be censorship resistant. And sometimes through the all the cycles, like those messages might get lost. But the ecosystem that was always cared about that it's ETH, and everything else that has tried to compete with it is really just a company. Um, and it's interesting now to see, you mentioned base, like now you have companies building on top of what was always just this, cypherpunk movement. Um, and it's probably exactly what ETH needed, honestly, was just like a marketing and execution arm to make sure that whatever the, pie in the sky ideals, to make sure that wasn't lost. Um, I It'll be really interesting to see how ETH scales over the next 2 years, because the vision put out by the EF now is concurrently scale the L1 and also, provide resources to the L2s. And we're obviously not in a shortage at all of other chains and block space right now. Um, so yeah, I think we're going to continue to see more and more like consumer apps that require like uh, high transaction speed, high throughput, and low transaction costs to keep going on base. But I think ETH L1 is going to be the place still where all of this like high value DeFi activity, the tokenization of the world is still going to happen on the L1. Um, but having L2s that can support more of the, speculative or um, higher throughput applications that people might want to build on ETH, games, all that stuff, great. I think the L2s are going to do fantastic for it.
My ETH bags love to hear it. Yeah, Jamie Dimon get a big stamp of approval to base once they're launching JPMD. They're stable on base, so that's very interesting. And I love both
Yeah, true.
ecosystems. I love them. I love them both, and I'm on it more and more every day. Back now, I was ETH maxi, then I went into the degen worlds of Solana, and now I'm back into Ethereum, doing stuff with abstract and base and whatnot. I'm in the Bay, so everywhere I look is AI. There's little robots following people around. There's probably gonna be more of that happening here in the Bay Area. I have to ask about AI. I know you guys are integrated with some AI agents with Superform. Tell us about how that technology is really going to help people in the world of whether it be DeFi or utilizing your product.
Hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating. Just everything since we started the company, like the way that we operate, way we write code, it's all already changed because of it. I think crypto and AI are solving two sides of the same coin, and the coin is like just giving the power back to the people, right? And crypto does that economically, and AI gives you the knowledge and like the tools to actually do something with that. Um, Whatever this intersection is will be really interesting to see. I think anything that AI needs to monetize and actually like transfer between itself uh, can easily happen on crypto rails. And we're probably going to look back at this couple years, and it's going to be crypto is just open money transfer. And then if we're going to have an open internet, if we're going to have this open intelligence, that the intelligence is going to want to use open money, right? I'm kind of already seeing it through like the Internet of Things stuff. When I want to have payments and stable coins, whatever. It just makes a ton of sense. Like AI is not going to be paying each other in ACH wires and like Venmoing each other, right? Like it's pretty straightforward that they're going to eventually have to use crypto. How crypto benefits from AI? It's probably like on the UX layer, right? Like Superform has try to do a really good job of improving UX, but at some point, users are just not going to want to ingest all the information themselves, and then eventually, I'm going to have a companion with me that can help me out and yeah, make this a little bit less of a journey and more of a like normal part of my life, you know?
Yeah, if you told me I would be utilizing AI agents with crypto, 6 months ago, I would have thought you were crazy. But now I'm trusting it a little bit more and more with a little bit more of my funds each day as the products really mature. So I think, like you said, not even a couple of years. I think a year down the road, they're going to be full blown, helping people with their finances, portfolio management, DeFi yields and whatnot. And it's going to be super exciting for that. I always thought that crypto really was going to help level the landscape, but it seems like it's going to be AI and crypto that's really going to level it out. Who has the best agents out there, and I'm really looking forward to that. At least for the average person like myself, who really want to take advantage of these opportunities. Like you said, cross chain is really tough, but if as an agent that can help you, mitigate all the risk and help you get the best returns, then that's gonna be a winning agent right there. So where are we
Totally.
going?
Yeah, I'd be really curious, like what agents, you've enjoyed using so far in crypto, because uh whenever I'm thinking about agents, it's like there are agents that can actually like educate and help me, and then there's some agents that do the entire thing, including execution. And the execution side of it has been a little bit
Yeah,
more vague to me, because it's like I'm personally like not totally there on having this manage everything by itself. But some supervision, like seems
yeah.
like the middle ground right now. Yeah.
I think I'm slower behind the curve. Like I started doing more with DeFi, meaning like allocating a bigger portion of my portfolio into DeFi just recently. I think a lot of people did that maybe 2018, but like a significant portion more for me it was this year. So when I say utilizing agents, I'm dabbling with like Wayfinder, like with Mammo I utilize on Base,
Yeah.
with Graphane. There's a lot of different ones that I'm testing out, but more and more I'm like take a little bit more money. Like I'm gonna get there one day where it's gonna be like a crypto right now is 25% of my portfolio. I want it actually to be 30, 40% um, um, of crypto, and with my DeFi portfolio, I see that percentage growing and growing, and the AI agent percentage is like slowly developing, and it could become a big part of what I'm doing in the future. That's what happened with NFTs and meme coins. I just like crypto was great, but the use case for it wasn't really there for me until NFTs. It like made a lot of fun and enjoyable, and I still enjoy it every single day. Like I do a lot of things with it, whether it be in physical restaurants, wine, alcohol, MBA. There's a lot of things that draw my attention to that, and the reason I bring that up is because I think AI agents will really drag me into the world of DeFi more so than DeFi itself,
Hmm.
because DeFi itself is like you have to really be in the trenches, right? You have to be a trench warrior, you have to be in crypto, but there's so much what is it? More yield there than like you posted on your website. Traditional banking, DeFi, the yield is just so much better, right? That's why I'm putting significantly more portion of my portfolio into DeFi. But AI agents is like kind of like this new landscape. So I think to answer your question, it's still early days, but more and more every day, I'm putting more and more money in. Maybe I'll take a look at Superform. I know you guys are integrated with an AI agent, or AI agents is utilizing kind of like your throughput, and I'll probably be asking you that same question.
Yeah, we do have a couple agents that use the Superform API right now to get it uses all the data, risk ratings, all that stuff from what we've collected. But we recently actually launched a Telegram bot to just surface the best opportunities on Superform. It's called Piggy,
Mm.
and it actually started off as a meme coin, and then turned into something. The community helped turn into something that was more than just a meme coin. Um, yeah, just like finds the best yield opportunities, and it solves like that initial search and discovery thing of like you actually needing to go to a website. You can just query it on Telegram. But yeah, it like links you off to Superform if you actually want to allocate your funds to that later. But at some point, I think the entire end-to-end flow is something that an agent could do. Just we need to like set up guardrails and stuff around it so that we don't have uh
Yeah.
yeah, a situation where you just allocated all your funds into a vault that rugs or something, and then blame the vault. But
Yeah.
yeah,
You could do that in TradFi today. You can take your all your assets and take a loan out against it, right? Uh, but when do I get comfortable enough to do that with DeFi? So I think that's going to happen soon, and I don't think people even realize that you can do that. You can unlock liquidity currently with your TradFi assets, but you can also do it, with your DeFi. So that's going to be a very interesting landscape when we get to that point. I think it's here sooner than later, and I think the opportunities are more apparent with crypto and AI for the average person. So yeah, we could talk about that for a long while. But the last question I like to ask most our guests come on here is the question that they hate to answer the most. What's Bitcoin going to be at end of 2025? No, but more importantly, where are we going? Where are we going? Because industry as a whole, it's like adoption every single day. We see Coinbase advocating for stocks coming on chain just yesterday, I think. Like news is not even it's not getting old now, right? Like everything is crypto based now. Every trad company, 70% is said a Fortune 500 company is working on a crypto project. Like it just seems like mass adoption is here. Uh, I had a lot of idealistic views of how I wanted NFTs and crypto to integrate into the real world use cases because I have so much pain points and so many different things. Uh, whether it be in DeFi or in like the real world, where do you think crypto's going, and what's something that you really really want to see happening in the world of crypto?
Mm. I think this is a really fun question to answer in a bull market. I can see why in a bear market this might be the least favorite question that people have to answer. If I were to summarize like why I'm excited right now, more than any other time, it's that we have finally perfected. I mean, there's always cycles of perfection, but I think we finally have the infrastructure needed to build things that people really care about. And for the longest time, it's been only we've only been able to appeal to a smaller set of people with a higher risk tolerance, because frankly, like no one prioritized actually getting new users, right? But now we can. We have easy onboarding. You can log in with your email. You don't have to store passphrases, all that stuff. You're going to see a lot of new apps launch with this experience that feels like I'm just using, Robinhood or Twitter on my phone, right? And historically, people have never onboarded to crypto that way. That's one thing. Um, I think this like whole financialization of blockchains thing, we're going to continue seeing. We're going to see like all types of assets come on chain, not just like the stuff backing stablecoins like what we talked about, but I think we're going to have like an entirely unbundled Robinhood on chain next year, unless Robinhood does it themselves. But I don't think that they're going to go all the way where we pretty much have tokenized stocks, all of these products being created on top of them, and then now it's instantly available to the world, no transaction fees, create options with all kinds of strikes, like total total freedom. Um, Financialization of blockchains, and then once that happens, then we're going to have a bunch of companies that are natively launched on crypto rails that are just making a ton of money, and that those could be stablecoin businesses. They could be protocols like us offering yield. They could be trading platforms, but eventually the entire infrastructure that TradFi is built on will just be replaced by all of this stuff, and we're going to have a bunch of apps that recreate the Nasdaq, recreate insurance companies, and all that stuff comes, I think, in the next few years. Like we've gone so fast just in the last 6 months on the stablecoin legislation that it's hard to see how, with the right incentives in place, there aren't just a bunch of companies that decide to recreate businesses that have had a bunch of middlemen that we can now entirely cut out and put on chain with this new stablecoin and UX layer. Um, yeah, it's probably a lot of other things I'm excited about, but I feel like those are the biggest trends we're going to see are like financialization of blockchains, better UX, and a bunch of companies on chain making money.
Nice.
Yeah,
Great times all around. It feels like the 2000.com boom all over. It seems like the ICO days all over again, but with actual companies this time. So I'm super excited for that. Yeah, and lastly, to your point, like I think the ball's rolled so far that like no one could stop it. Like states are taking initiative more so than federal now. Like even if the government's not doing it, the state side government is actually doing things and launching things. Like New York was thinking about launching a bit bond. I mean, just so much cool stuff happening that I'm excited about, and I know that we have a lot to talk about when you come back in the future about Superform and also what's happening. Where can people find you?
yeah. Uh, you can find me on Twitter, probably the easiest. Handles VIK_RUNA. And yeah, Superform Twitter. It's in my bio too. But yeah, thanks for having me. And whenever I do come back, I'm sure price action on all this stuff is going to be a lot better. And excited for that conversation, whatever it is.
Hey, if it's a lot better and Bitcoin's over 100,000 now, I cannot wait for that time. Thank you, Vikram, so much for coming on
Yeah,
today.
thanks for having me, Joe.